In this hand, you're playing a $44 buy-in 6-max tournament. You have ace 10 offsuit. You go ahead and raise, and villain 20 calls you, and so does the big blind. The board comes 10 of hearts, 8 of hearts, 7 of hearts. Villain 28 checks. It is on you. Would you like to check or bet? We fire 3 big blinds here, and we get called by both players. The turn is the ace of spades. Villain 28 checks to you. Here, would you like to check or bet? We fire 10 big blinds. Villain 20 folds and villain 28 calls. The river is the 8 of clubs. Villain 28 checks, and it's on us. Check or bet. That's it. If you did want to fire here, how much did you want to bet? We put out 15 big blinds, and my man puts it all in. Now on you. Check. Excuse me, fold or call. Woo-wee, you're in a pickle. Good luck. You don't like these situations when you play, right? That's why we're drilling them today. This is a real hand that happened, but there's no money down for you. So it's a good time to learn. Now, some folks will say, I wouldn't have been in this pickle if I just checked. Some folks will say, well, I keep calling these and losing, so I should be folding. If you know you should be folding, but you're calling regularly, you got to ask yourself why that is. So let's break this down. What do you think you're supposed to do here? It's called a teaser. We'll get to that. Now, on the flop, so a lot of folks say check here, but you always want to be betting. So many good things happen when you're betting. You could have the best hand, but you get worse hands to call you. You could have the worst hand, but you get better hands to fold. But you always want to have a purpose for your bets. Are they for value? Are they a bluff? Here you have top pair, top kicker. It's clearly a value bet. What's the second thing you got to ask yourself? What am I getting called by that I beat? What am I getting value from? Sometimes people will say, I've got ace 7. Clearly it's a value hand. I'm going to value bet. What are you getting value from? The ace of hearts, maybe. That's about it. 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s aren't calling you. Always make sure, because now a lot of people are laughing going, who the hell bets ace 7 here? You have not watched as much poker as I've watched. I teach poker every morning. I've done that for more than a decade. You should see what people do when they're on autopilot. And you can stop all of that by asking yourself, what is the purpose of each bet? And actually listing out the hands that you want calling or folding versus you. This is a value bet. What is calling you? King 10, Queen 10, Jack 10, 10, 9, Ace of Hearts, King of Hearts. nine, 8, 9. A lot of hands are calling you. Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to bet here because what if I get raised? If you get raised, ask yourself another question. They're different propositions. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened to you to fold top pair, top kicker. Most people feel like they don't deserve to play poker. Most people feel like they're too weak of a person if they end up folding top pair, top kicker. Real professionals fold the best hand all the time. You're never going to be perfect. Sometimes you accidentally fold the best hand. You live to fight another day. You'll lose much more money trying to sleep well at night, making sure no one's ever bluffing you. If somebody raises you here, ask yourself, whenever you're facing a big bet, you got to ask yourself, what question? Does he do this with X? And X is the best hand that you beat. So let's say you bet here and somebody raises the size of the pot. Is that king 10? Is that queen 10? Is that jack 10? Is that the ace of hearts? Most likely not. Most people don't raise with those hands. They usually just call and see the turn. You can just fold. If they bluffed you, they bluffed you. So what? It's a $44 tournament. I would bet against that. So we fire here for value and we get called in 2 spots. And we turn top 2 pair. Very nice. And we fire again. Why? For value. What's calling us? Well, if they just called us with the ace of hearts, they're definitely calling us now on this turn when they make top pair. Ace 8 is calling us. Ace 7 is calling us. I wouldn't be shocked if 10-9 or 8-9 calls this one more time because people love their draws, especially in low stakes tournaments. So we fire again for value and villain 28 calls. The river comes at 8 of clubs. It gets checked to us and we fire. Let me tell you why you fire. Are you pretty sure you have the best hand? Yes or no? Are you on the river? Yes or no? If you are pretty sure you have the best hand and you are on the river, you should fire the majority of the time. Why? Most of your opponents cannot sleep at night if they think they might have folded the best hand on the river. They would much rather pay some of their stack just to see what you have. The curiosity is killing them. The easiest money you will ever make is on the river. This is a 15 big blind bet. You don't make 15 big blinds in 100 hands, most likely. You can get that right now on one street of one hand. It's really likely. Do you think you have the best hand most of the time? Then fire. The ace of hearts is going to call you again. Obviously, it's top pair. Have you ever tried to make somebody fold top pair at a low stakes game? It's not so easy. What about a random 10? Does a random 10 pay you again? You'd be shocked. I wouldn't be surprised. So we fire here. Real thin. But it's actually pretty easy when this person jams. Just ask yourself the question. Does he do this with X? And X is the best hand that you beat. So what would that even be? Is there a weak or 2 pair? So what is that going to be? Just the ace? The ace of hearts? You think just check jams here? That doesn't make sense. Okay, the second question you got to ask yourself is this a missed draw? Because a lot of bluffs are missed draws. People have a lot of equity. They're super excited. They miss all that equity. They're super pissed off. And they try to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. So are there any missed draws out here? I guess there's a 9, but you wouldn't assume that just goes flying off the handle most of the time. So this is an easy bet fold. Now, most people, when they don't get to show down their cool top pair and see if it's good or not, they feel like they got worked. What if I just got exploited? Think about what your opponent would have to do for this to be a bluff. Your opponent did not just check call with king two of diamonds in a multi-way pot to check call you again with king two of diamonds on an ace turn, just to check raise king two of diamonds on the river to make your life hell. You're not that important. I'm not that important. Nobody cares that much about you. They have something on this river. The ace of hearts makes a ton of sense and likes to call down a lot. Probably is not check raising for uber thin value. What could be bluffing you on this river? It has to be something that check called flop, check called turn, and now is check raising river. 7-9. The king of hearts. Did the king of hearts just call you on the turn when you fired again into two people? Now you might say a hand like ace of hearts, 9x, but they got a pair with that, and this is a low stakes game with a pair. They're likely just going to call down with a 10-9 or a 7-9. Most of these people think in very binary terms. I've got a pair. Is my pair good? They don't think about turning those hands into bluffs. If you're listening to the sound of my voice, you're very likely a very hardcore poker fan. You play a lot of hands. You see a lot of rivers and a lot of action. How often do you see somebody call on the river and you see somebody turning a hand into a bluff? Name the last 5 times you saw that. If you're paranoid about that on this river, you've probably seen it 5 times in the last week, right? Last 2 weeks? Month? If you can't come up with 5 times you saw someone get called off with hands being turned into a bluff, it's likely not happening. Because we all know at the stakes we're playing, a lot of us are playing low to mid stakes. People don't like to fold rivers. So you see bluffs get caught. No, you value bet here because there's going to be a lot of random ace-X of hearts that are just going to call you because screw it, it's a $44 buy-in. I want to see if my top pair is good. And when they check jam here, it's a flush. Most likely that's slow play. Or it's a random 8 that just decided it's good right now. 8-9. A lot of people won't do that with the flush draw out there, but sure, some people will do that. You're cooked. That's it. It's over. And I guess some people wouldn't check raise like an 8-7 on this dangerous of a board, so that would make some sense as well. But we said all that, and we go ahead and call. When should we call? What situations turn this into a call? What percentage of the time do you think this is a call? This is going to be just a few situations, which is why I typically don't want to show really thin bet calls, because usually the way you're going to make all your money is bet folding rivers. That's honestly the way to do it. Your opponents are not that creative. So when I was teaching this, I thought to myself, okay, say what you would do 90, 95% of the time, and then discuss the other situation. The other situation is blatant. It's a guy that cannot fold pre-flop. is somebody that finds their way into 50% of pots and is raising 40% of the time. Or you know what's another time you'll see a lot of bluffs when you're playing online? Brainstorm right now. When do you see a lot of bluffs? Late at night. Late at night, people have busted, especially late at night on a Sunday. People start with a ton of tournaments on a Sunday. They're super excited. They bust a bunch of tournaments. They go, the hell with this, man. I'm going bigger. I'm going home. If you're thinking like that, prepare to go home. It almost never works out. You know why you bust so many tournaments early? Because the deep runs take longer. So here's the deal. Whenever you boot up a bunch of tournaments, all the tournaments that are going to go wrong, they're going to go wrong early. Your deep runs take longer. Now, you hope your biggest buy-ins are what you run deep in, but that's not going to happen every day. So sometimes you boot up some 162s, some 215s, some 55s, some 33s, some 44s. And you're going to bust out of some of them early because bust outs happen quickly and deep runs take time. So every one of your sessions is going to start with a lot of bad beats and a lot of tournaments busting. And then you're going to be left with the deep runs. And it's up to you to stay mature when you're running deep, because it's not always going to be your biggest buy-in. $44 is not a lot of people's biggest buy-in. So you know what? Late in the day, they go, F it, I'm done. And you'll see random nines pile it in. You'll see random king of hearts, etc. put it in. Now, should you gamble on this? Should you go looking for this? No, because I can tell you, my guess would be no one's done as many private poker lessons as I have, because I've been doing it for over a decade, most days. And I can tell you the hardest thing to teach any poker player is a bluff, especially a check raise bluff on the river. And I've worked with players from 60 different countries, all different ages. People just don't like bluffing. They get caught, they feel stupid. So if someone ever asks you, do they bluff enough here to call? I would always take the under. Now, I could have given you the conditions for this hand and said this guy plays 50% of the hands. This guy's raising about 40% of the time. This guy's aggression frequencies are off the charts in every hand, but that would have made it too easy. So let's cover the entire realm of possibilities that could happen in this hand. If you folded on this river, I love it. If you bet folded on this river, bet folding is usually the right way to do it. If you bet call, but you set some conditions in your head, if you said to yourself, this would have to be a guy going bananas in a 6-max tournament, that's great. But one thing you really want to check yourself on is if you don't want to bet the river because you're just paranoid about a raise. That's not likely to come that often with the initial conditions we discussed. If you want more content like this, go to pokerheadrush.com. That website, one more time, pokerheadrush.com.